Hello everyone and welcome to your Sunday night edition of the TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm joined this evening by another Craig Hughes. How are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Just recovering from the Manchester trip, but I had a good result today, so I'm feeling good.
Absolutely. Craig and I seem to bump into each other about 3 or 4 times over the course of the night, and including at a service station at about 1 a.m. So, but yeah, it was a very good trip to Manchester, albeit apart from the result. But Rangers were back in action today, away up at Dundee United, which we all knew was going to be a tough fixture. It's always a tough fixture for us, but actually the only place where we've won twice this season, which is strange in itself. But Craig, what did you make of today's game overall? Were you happy with? Obviously, I assume you're happy with the result, but were you happy? What were your thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I thought first 20 minutes or so, probably even longer than that, we were very much on the ropes, and I thought this could be the same old story away games. But to be fair to the team, after Diomande's goal, I thought we were good. I thought Dundee United, played pretty well as well. To be fair, it was a decent game in the end, but I think considering how bad our away form has been, you could tell there was a wee bit of pressure on us. We could have killed it off before we did, but you've got to be happy, I think, in any circumstances going to a place like Tannadice and getting a 3-1 result. You've got to be happy with that, to be fair.
100%. I think, and we'll go on to all the sort of big talking points from it, and we'll start at the end before we go into the rest of the game. But I did think today was just coming off the back of a tough game midweek in Europe. The fact that the squad was down to bare bones, the fact that we were playing some of the younger players away at Old Trafford, which isn't necessarily what anyone expected or particularly wanted, I think it's fair to say. And that, albeit they stood up very well to the challenge, I just thought today was a potential banana skin, and even more so when we went 1-0 down. But I thought the team did well overall. Rode our luck at times. They hit the post 3 times during that, but I thought overall the team did pretty well. Plenty of stuff we can do better on. I think that's the story of this season. But yeah, I think it's a 3-1 win away to Tannadice. You can't really complain too much. But Craig, let's start at the very end. It's the biggest talking point that's come out of the game. It looked like a pretty straightforward 3-1 win before this, but Mohammed Diomande was sent off right at the dying seconds of the game. It looked like a bit of a clash between him and Kevin Holt, I think, was the Dundee United defender, when they did a bit of a clash. Wasn't quite sure what happened, but the referee took 10-15 seconds and then showed a red card to, initially on the TV, they thought it was Hamza Igaman, and my heart skipped a bit of a beat when that was the case, but it was actually Mohammed Diomande that had received the red card. He looked absolutely bewildered. The rest of the team looked absolutely bewildered. What was your initial reaction to it? Even, like I said, before you even saw a replay?
I just thought it was a bizarre one. When I seen the red card come out, I just thought it was a nothing incident, and I wanted to see it again to see if it was something in it. And the replays again proved that there was nothing in it. He's been pushed. His arms came up a little bit, but it's kind of, you could argue he's while he's getting pushed, he's trying to get his balance a little bit. But regardless, there's no real contact. It's nothing in it. Neither player really would have wanted. Was shouting for either player to be sent off. It was just a nothing instant at the end of the game. So I was baffled when first of all he showed the red, and then I know continue to talk about how he kept his decision. I just thought it was a bizarre red card and totally pointless as well.
Yeah, it was a kind of clash that you normally see 2 yellow cards for, a yellow card each, and everyone gets on with their day, and no one disagrees. I saw in the studio afterwards, you had Chris Sutton trying to justify that Diomande swung his arm at him and slapped him and things like that. I don't even think he swung his arm at him, really, to be honest. Never mind slapping him or making contact with him.
He's not. I think the thing that annoys me the most, referees can get these wrong. They can think they saw something that they didn't. Yeah, if there was no VAR, we'd be criticising the referee just now. But with VAR, I think it's unforgivable. The fact he's went to the monitor, the fact other referees are telling you, look, we don't think that's a red, take a look at it. see, at that point, I think a referee's natural reaction should be, do I need to send somebody off here?
Yeah.
And then, no player safety's at harm. Nobody's rolling about in the ground. The game's not, Jim Goodwin would not have been talking about the red card if it wasn't been given. He wouldn't have been, in the press saying he should have been off. That would have changed the game. So he didn't need to say, he could have saved himself a lot of hassle. So just from a human perspective and a natural referee's, what their instinct should be, he should have been then going, right, do I need to send them off for that? No, I've got it wrong. But it's just a stubbornness to just stick with your decision. And as I said, it just, for me, it beggars belief how you've watched that and you've not been able to keep a cool head and, go back in your decision and admit you were wrong.
Yeah, there's a plenty of comments coming in on this one. Hugo Bear saying horrendous decision by Walsh. Wout Gibson 97. I thought Dio's arm was up because Hope pushed him off balance. Kyle 1872. It's conscious bias against Rangers happening here. Blue bells are blue. Wasn't even a yellow, barely a foul. Where do you stand with? A lot of people have used this as kind of evidence to back up some claims that there's been that referees are maybe not out to get Rangers, but they're making decisions that they wouldn't make for any other club in the league or whatever that they are for Rangers. I'm not sure I buy into that particularly. I think it's just bad refereeing and being incompetent at their job. But where do you stand on that kind of narrative?
I don't think it's a actual bias. I don't for 1 minute think referees actually, have this agenda and they talk to each other beforehand and say, I'm going to make sure I go out and referee Rangers differently. I don't think there's anything as sinister as that. I think it's part of it is that I think maybe Rangers have been a bit of a soft touch compared to Celtic over the years, and it is easier to give bad decisions against Rangers. I think part of it is that. But part of it is just that they're not good referees. We do get some decisions in our favour. I think they're just bad referees and they can't cope with it. I say they can't cope with the pressure. It was 3-1 today in stoppage time. There was no pressure on them to send them off. So yeah. I just think it is bad refereeing, to be honest with you. And I probably think there's an unconscious bias at Celtic. Well, it will be harder to give a decision against Celtic because they'll come down on you like a ton of bricks, whereas maybe Rangers over the years have been a little bit softer on that side. So I do think there is a little bit of that. But I think just generally, I think it's referees just not being good enough.
Yeah, I think almost in the moment you could maybe really stretch and you could maybe be like, okay, maybe he thinks he's seen something that he hasn't. Mm-hmm. But the fact he went over to review the decision, the fact that I think it was Don Robertson that was on VAR, recommended that they went to look at it, which usually means that they think it's the wrong decision. Yeah. And he's doubled down on it. I think it's just quite incredible having seen the pictures from any angle you see it from. It's not even like there's one angle where you're like, oh, that looks really bad. Mm-hmm. From any angle you see it, it was just a bit of a coming together. I wouldn't even give it 2 yellow cards. I would just give them a talking to and walk off. But if you're going to come, if you need to want to punish someone anyway, just a yellow card each and off you go. It was baffling.
I mean, it pretty much was the same as, I don't know if you remember the Motherwell one a few weeks ago, where was it Casey put his hand up on Armstrong, and the referees thought he saw him grabbing him by the throat. He went to the screen and he just doubled down, and I think that is the most annoying, the stubbornness. I don't mind I do mind, but you can understand referees make mistakes, but it's the fact that he doesn't just hold his hands up and admit when he sees it on the screen. Take your time, realise it's an error, and then change your mind. And as I said, nobody would have been talking about it. Nobody would have been screaming for Diomande to be red carded for a long time. It would have been quickly brushed over. So it's just bizarre, but I think it's numerous mistakes. And in fairness, as I said, that's happened to Motherwell. There's plenty of other clubs that have had a grievances against refs as well.
Yeah, what do you make of the fact? Obviously, after that one, Willie Collum came out on the VAR review show, I think it's called, that they do with Gordon Duncan. Came out and said it's a completely unacceptable decision. It wouldn't. They'd worked really hard with referees, and that type of decision shouldn't happen and wouldn't happen again. And then it's happened a couple of weeks later. Do you think? I was going to say, do you think he's tearing his hair out, but he doesn't have any left. So, but do you think I actually think the way that Willie Collum has been communicating since he came into that that role has been much better than we've had previously. I don't think they've got it quite right, because I guess as fans we don't know what the consequences are if there's consistently bad performances from referees or consistently bad decisions. But I think they're taking steps in the right direction. Do you think, I guess like me, you probably fully expect him to come out and say it was a ridiculous decision?
I think the communication is one thing. I agree. Let's be honest, none of us have been Willie Collins' biggest fan in the past, but since he's went into that job, the communication has been better. You're right there. You've got to say that. But as you said, it's where we go from here. Now I know you can't expect instant results. You can't expect big changes straight away. But you're right. You said it's unacceptable, and then you see these referees getting a big game 2 weeks later. So I think we've got at some point see an improvement, and we're not. To be honest with you, it's a really bad decision on top of many that have been this season, and it feels as if it's somewhat getting worse. I might be wrong in that, but it seems as if some of the decisions are getting worse, because that today is one of the worst I've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, a few other comments come in. Cubby Cubster saying, an honest man will admit when he's wrong. Correct. Welcome to Scottish referee and shocking decision. CGM 55. There are too many bad decisions against us. Stop being so naive. Bluebells are blue. I don't think there is a bias either. I just think our players are not smart to things, and we have appalling referees. Finn Fogel, sorry mate, but you're living on another planet if you think these decisions aren't agenda driven. Also a Rangers hating bigot. If you knew his background, you soon realise what he's all about. I have to disagree with, especially that last comment. I don't think any referee is out to get one team or another, however frustrating their decisions are. But I think it does seem there's a bit of a range of views on this one, and people do seem to be sort of set. It's one of those ones where people are almost entrenched in their views, and they're not going to move from it. But Craig, what can Rangers do we've asked this about 10 times this season, but what can Rangers do kind of going forward to do everything they can to stop these decisions happening when they do, making sure that everyone's aware of them, and that there's consequences off the back of it?
Yeah, I think I think they need to be as vocal as possible with decisions like that. They need to be strong with their statements, and it needs to be a lot of work behind the scenes as well. But it's hard because sometimes we make a statement and then we can't really back it up, and I don't know what power you've really got to change any of that. I don't think there's anything we can do that stops these decisions. I think we can be vocal about it. We obviously appeal the decisions. We stack up the evidence, but really, I think we've got to make sure we don't. Yes, we're strong. We put out statements and we're try and push for these decisions to be correct. But we've also not got to take our eye off the ball and make sure we're focusing on getting our own house in order and building our squad properly and all that. Because let's be honest, we don't want it to come across as excuses, because we're where we are in the league because of us. It's not because of referees. So I think there's a balance that you have to strike between putting pressure back on referees, holding the SPFL, SFA, whoever it may be, accountable, but also not coming across as just shouting for the sake of it and nothing really getting done. So, long story short, I don't really have the answer to that. To be honest with you, I don't know what really.
I don't think any of us have the. I don't think any of us have the answer. To be honest, yeah, it's one of those ones where every time it comes up, you're kind of sitting there going, well, other than moaning and shouting about it, what more can you do? You're kind of relying on the referees learning from mistakes and trying to and getting improving from there, and being put through the correct training, I guess, to get past those.
I do probably agree. One of the comments about us putting a little bit of pressure on them. A lot of people said that, and like the final, like our players not being around referees and not being as smart in games, not streetwise. I think we have improved on that recently. I think if you look back to the last Old Firm game with Raskin, constantly in the referee's ear and sort of managing the game better, putting a little bit of pressure on the referee after the game, even though we won. I think we're getting a little bit better at the dark arts on that side, but there's nothing you can do about today, to be honest with you. There's nothing you can really change from what we've done.
Yeah, I think lots of people saying we need to come out and make as much noise as possible. Hugo Bear, the club and supporters need to make lots of noise until we see parity in refereeing. CGM 55. The club has to come out and demand an explanation. If Walsh comes out with anything other than an apology and an admission of his error, then the club should call it out as a lie. I think this one's going to run and run all week. This will dominate all the phone-ins and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's a decision that's been made. It'll be appealed. It'll be overturned. If it's not overturned, I'll be absolutely shocked. But it's a shame that it's come to that after a game where we won 3-1 away at Tannadice, which is a good result. But let's get back to talking about the game itself, and actually back to the starting lineup. I guess Philippe Clement's hand was kind of forced in terms of the way he had to go with it, with Václav Černy's injury during the week and a few other injuries in there as well. We saw Igaman and Dessers both in the starting lineup. Not often we've seen two strikers in there, and when we have seen two strikers in there, it's tended to be some of our better performances. Was that something you were happy to see in that starting lineup?
Yeah, I actually said that to one of my mates on Thursday. We look so much more comfortable with two up front, and it's what's been a huge part of. I don't want to say our upturning form, because we've obviously still got a way to go, but we have seen much better performances when there's two up front. This team's more comfortable playing with two up front, whether it's one drops off a little bit, one goes out wide and drifts. But when we've got two natural strikers on there, we perform so much better. So I was happy to see that. I know his hand was forced a little bit. You could argue that he could have went with a couple of different options, but you're right, and it's absolute bare bones, to be honest, with that squad. But no, I think I was quite happy with the team, as I said, with the, what else could they really have done?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Interesting one here from Derek Caldwell. Philippe Clement, obviously, when he first came in, said that the injury record of the club was ridiculous, and there's definitely something up, and there's no way it should be as it is. It feels like this season's just gone the same, if not worse, than it has other seasons. Derek Caldwell saying 10 players injured needs investigated. What do you think, is it just a case of bad luck, or is it surely it's happened so consistently to us that it can't just be bad luck year after year?
Yeah, I think it's recruiting players that are durable enough for Scottish football and can deal with the physical demands of Scottish football. I think that's what we've not done. We've not recruited players who can, deal with that in Scottish football. And there's also ones like Balogun, who now been a very good player for us, but now his body's failing him. He cannot play, a couple of games in a row. We've got Sterling, hardly played 3 games in a row with Rangers. Ridvan, who I don't think's, geared out towards Scottish football. He's not physical enough. He gets injured a lot. Proper, I think he struggles to deal with the physical demands. So I think a big chunk of it has been recruiting players that are made to, play in Scottish football and can deal with the rough and tumble and can deal with the amount of games. And not just that, the amount of demands on Rangers. I think that's part of it, without obviously knowing behind the scenes, having any kind of medical experience on that side. But I think that's part of it. I think another part is that we are not comfortable in a lot of games, which means we're going for 90 minutes and we're having to, go to the well time and time again. You're having to bring on players when they're injured to try and salvage results. So that's not helped. We should have more games when we're 3-4-0 up, and you can rest 5. You can take 5 players out, 4 or 5 players off. You can make changes to starting lineup. I think it's a mixture of things, but I think the main one is I just don't think we've recruited players that are right for Scottish football a lot of times, or that maybe are taking a bit of time to adjust to it.
Yeah, is it a case of, because people say, well, we need to take a look at the medical team, we need to take a look at the people behind the scenes. I guess Philippe once pointed a lot this season towards the sports science team and the influence they have on his decision making. How much of it is down to that side of it, do you think?
I mean, I think Clement has kind of stitched himself up with a few of the comments, not for the first time, but because he criticised the kind of old regime in terms of injuries last year, he kind of points to the way they were doing things. And now, because we've got just as many, if not more injuries, it kind of then asks the questions of those comments and makes him look a wee bit silly on that side. I don't know. I wouldn't want to say without too much knowledge the sports science side of it, but I think Clement's probably gave too much away with that, and it's been used as a stick to beat him because of those comments before. And I think it's sort of, as I said, it comes across quite hypocritical to guys like ourselves that don't know a lot about it. For example, you're saying you can't play people because of sports science, but then Tav, who we all knew had to play less games, got kind of ran into the ground before Christmas and ended up injured. So I don't really know. I don't have any expertise in that field, but I do think Philippe Clement's comments have kind of come back to bite him a little bit on that side.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to be fair, squad depth and squad size will be part of that as well. We've known all season that we don't feel like we've got a strong enough squad. We've got a big squad, but we don't feel like we've got a strong enough squad. And that's probably led to Philippe Clement keeping playing the same players over and over again, albeit he was changing the starting lineup all the time. He was still going back to the well with the same players quite a bit. And I think that's interesting, an interesting point to look forward to if we are rebuilding the squad, as he says, if we're going to see quite a turnover in players, but also quite a turnover in terms of the number of players that are up to the right standard as well. So that'll be really interesting. But Craig, I think today I was a bit, you're always a bit worried coming off the back of a European game because we just start slow. I don't know why it is. I don't know there's no rhyme or reason as to why we do it. It takes us 20-25 minutes to try and get going after playing on a Thursday. What do you think's behind that, and how do you get round that as a team? How do you stop that happening? Because it just seems to, after every European game or even a midweek league game, it seems to be the case.
I think it's been an issue for years. I think Steven Gerrard's team, usually struggled with 12 o'clock kickoffs on a Sunday. I think it's just, especially after European games, and I don't think there's any total getting away from it in terms of you're going to have a bit of tiredness coming into the weekend when you've played a Thursday night and you've got so much adrenaline. It's maybe been a big game. I think there's always going to be a little bit of that, but I think a big part of it is just not being able to freshen the squad up, and not having players to change it. So I think that's part of the problem. It's the same players that were going, as you said, they're going to the well over and over again. I think that's the biggest issue. I think when you've got a stronger squad, you can not make wholesale changes, but you can, rotate 2 or 3, and it can make more of a difference. So I think that's part of it. I think, again, it's a little bit of confidence. I think we've been going into Tannadice with a little bit of fear. There's a little bit of nervousness about the players, and I think that's the way they've started off until they've settled in. So I think part of it is the mentality, just rather than having that, listen, we go out, we kill off teams at early doors. But I think a little bit it's down to mentality as well.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to agree with that one. I think Derek Caldwell saying, can it be tiredness when you have such a good second half? I think that's partly a question. One of the things I've had around this team is that they seem to wait to get a rocket at half time and then they start playing, and that just can't wait for that to happen. I think it was the same under Michael Beale as well, wasn't it? They would struggle first half and then they come out second half and play like a completely different team. But you've already surrendered half the game by playing the way you did in the first half.
Yeah, I think it's something that happened Gerrard's last season, or before he left for Gio. We went behind in so many games, and a lot of them we came back and won, but eventually that runs out. If you give teams a goal head start, before you know it, something could happen like the Motherwell game when you're 2-0 down and you've given yourself, a huge amount to climb. You've given them something to hold on to. The game's going to be in the balance the second half, and you're going to have to, kind of pull out a result from somewhere. So as we're just giving teams belief and giving them, oxygen, and those players, it then drives those players on by giving them a sniff of it.
Yeah, I think so. Kyle 1872 saying it's leadership on the pitch that stops us playing 2 halves of football. We never positively change things during a half of football. Well, I think it's fair to say that it didn't feel like there was much leadership defensively when Dundee United grabbed their first goal, their only goal, thankfully, of the day. But we were at 6s and 7s whenever they put a ball in the box, or whenever the long throws, especially, we struggled massively to deal with. It was like it was a surprise every single time it happened. And I don't know how, as a professional football team, as a team that will have dealt with that many times, but will also have been preparing specifically for this game, and how Dundee United are going to play that that happens. But the ball kind of it comes in, it bounces around, ricochets here, there, and everywhere, and Sam Dalby kind of toe pokes it into the roof of the net, and it's 1-0 down. It's kind of been symptomatic of the type of goal we've been losing this season, so it didn't really come as a surprise to any of us, I don't think. But why do you think it is that we're, as soon as we go away from home domestically, it's like a switch goes and we struggle defensively, whereas if you look at us away in Europe or in any European games and you look at us at Ibrox, we're much more confident, much more assured in the way that we play?
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit in our heads. We go to these grounds, it's little tight grounds. They fancy it because they've seen us get a few bad results, and they just want to fire long balls on top of us and just make it uncomfortable for us, and we don't handle the physical side. I think part of it as well that hurts us is the likes of Robin Proper. He's come out a few times now in the media and said how much he's maybe struggling a bit. I'm not using the exact words, but struggling a bit with the physical side and adjusting to Scottish football. You tell a striker that and they're licking their lips, about the next game, and they're just going to put balls in the air, challenge you physically. So I think a little bit has just been bad results have led to teams now fancying it against us, away from home, and they thought, we can get something there, and they look forward to that game rather than dreading it. And I think it's a little bit of that, and it's a little bit of the fear factor from our team. And as well, it's a makeshift back four. There's young guys like Yefte, I think, he's got some ability. He's going to make some mistakes, and I think he'll learn from it. So I think there is a little bit of that in our team. We're changing it all the time. Enciala's came in there. He's just playing his first couple of professional games. So I think there is just a vulnerability about us. And I think as well, the goalkeeper, I think Jack Butland's had a lot of shaky moments this year. And I think that doesn't breed confidence for your back four as well. So I think it's a little bit of everything. We're just not robust enough to go to these grounds, get the job done with no fuss. I think there always seems to be a little bit of calamity at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a few comments around Enciala's performance today. I guess part of bleeding in youngsters to teams like this is to test them in different circumstances and in different places. Away to Dundee United is one of the tougher games that we're going to face in a season. What did you make of his performance today versus other games you've seen him in?
I thought he started off really shaky, and then he kind of settled in a little bit more. But we did look pretty vulnerable at the back. But I mean, it's not really totally on him, is it? Because he's thrown in there. He's not. Let's be honest. He's not next to a David Weir or someone that's got to talk him through the game and hold the game. He's next to Proper, who I thought had a really poor first half as well. So I did think as a back four, I don't want to be too critical. On individuals, but I did think as a back four, we just looked a bit all over the place and didn't really cope with it well. But as we said, guys like Enciala, guys like Yefte, at least there's a good chance that they'll learn from these things. Maybe not overnight. Maybe not. Yefte made the mistake the other night. He's done that a few times over the course of the season. You hope that these guys, there's hope that they'll learn from it, and by next season they'll be much more cultured players, and they can hopefully kick on. Whereas, last year or even some of this year, we're watching the same guys come back in. You think last year, Borna Barisic, same mistake at the back post, never going to get any better. So I think, unfortunately, when you're trying to bring young players in, there is going to be a little bit of pain with it, and we're going to have to suffer some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come on to some of the other younger players that made an appearance today, or some that maybe surprisingly didn't make an appearance today, but we didn't really create much at all in that first 30 minutes or so of the game. I was kind of, after Dundee United went 1-0 up, you're kind of thinking, can we score one goal to try and get back into this? Never mind score two to try and win it. But Mohammed Diomande popped up, something that he's not done often enough for my liking, to be honest. I've seen some people saying it's down to the formation that Fleck plays. I think it's maybe partially down to that. I think partially Mohammed Diomande has just been so hot and cold over the course of the last year or so, that it's that we've not seen enough of those kind of performances from him. But just a word on his goal, first of all. Craig, it was some strike.
Aye, great strike. And I think one of the comments earlier said that there was no leadership from the team. Well, I think Diomande, to be honest with you, today showed a good bit of leadership. I know he's got sent off, right? It wasn't his fault, but he's been kicked off the park. He's responded by scoring an absolute beauty that's got us back into the game. I don't want to say totally out of nowhere, but it's totally changed the game. You know, he's took it on himself, and had a great strike. He's found the space for himself, hit it perfectly, and bottom corner, and that's just totally changed the course of the game. So I'm with you. I think he needs to do it more. But for me, the last couple of months, there's been more good than bad from Diomande, or more of these sort of performances in these moments than there has been, kind of anonymous games. So I feel like we're starting to see the better version of Diomande, but it needs to be, you're right, it needs to be a bit more consistent. But you can certainly tell he's got that in his locker.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mohammed Diomande is an interesting one because it seems to be going by discussion on social media and going by discussion I've had in a lot of sort of kind of different group chats and stuff like that. It seems to be used as a bit of a bellwether for how much people know about football or not, in terms of, do you think he's a good player or not? I think I probably sit in the camp of, I think he's got real talent. I think he's a promising player, but he's not showing it enough, and he's not going forward in his development. If anything, I felt he's kind of regressed since he's arrived at Rangers. How do you feel about that? I just don't think he does enough. He does what he did today enough times.
Mm-hmm. I can see where it comes from, and I probably had the exact same opinion probably a couple of months ago. But as I said, I think the performances in the last couple of Old Firms have really showed me that he's got a bit about him. He's dealt with the physical side of it. He's done very well in Europe. I totally agree. He needs to be more consistent. But I think I'm now seeing, a player. And not I didn't ever see a player, but now I'm seeing that he's going to go places and he is going to progress. So I've got more hope for him after seeing the last couple of months. He'll kick on. I think what's helped him is Raskin next to him. I think we've got now a pairing in there that, you can build upon. I was before looking at it and thinking with a kind of powder puff midfield. Now I'm looking at it and, saying I think those two can, they work very well together.
Do you think it's kind of pushed Connor Barron out of the picture a bit?
Yeah, he has. And I don't want to knock on Connor Barron too much, because he's a young Scottish guy who, let's be honest, didn't play every week for Aberdeen, and he's come into this Rangers team and started off really well. It has pushed him out a wee bit, and Bailey Rice obviously you've now got coming in that could potentially go ahead of Barron in the pecking order if he hasn't already. So yeah, this midfield pairing has put Connor Barron out, but again, it's up to Connor Barron to force his way in. It shouldn't be easy to get in the Rangers team. It should be very, very tough. So it has forced them out a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. There's plenty of questions coming in about Nadim Barami. We'll come on to talk about him a bit later on once we get to the end of sort of the key talking points from the game. Second half, the good thing was that we finished the first half strong, and then we started the second half in the same manner, Craig, and it wasn't long until we were in the lead. Surprisingly, it was Robin Proper that popped up with the goal. He took the ball on the turn nicely. Good strike. I'm not sure if it was going in without the deflection or not, but we'll absolutely take it. He's a defender that you think should score a lot more goals than he does, but he still pops up every now and again with an important one, and that was another one today.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's struck the ball well. Centre half, I know myself, sometimes get in that position and we'll put it in row Z. So he's done well, just to bit of composure, hit it cleanly, and it's took a deflection. And sometimes we don't do that too often. We look for the perfect opening. He's just turned, got his shot away, and then can happen when it gets in that area. So it's took a deflection in. So a good goal from our point of view. Robin Proper, he's chipped in with a couple of goals. Hopefully he can continue to do that. But again, he's a frustrating one, because in Europe, I actually think he's been pretty good. In Old Firms, he's been pretty good as well, but just long throw-ins, long balls, he just cannot handle, which is frustrating. But good to see him getting the score sheet, and hopefully it gives him a little bit of confidence. Yeah,
definitely. It seems strange buying a defender to play in the Scottish Premiership that can't deal with long balls and long throw-ins, but here we are. Here we are at the moment. Throughout the rest of the game, it still felt really open. It felt that we needed a third, definitely. Dundee Utd, I think, hit the post 2 more times. After that, if I remember correctly, felt there were a couple of times where it felt like we got away with one, but we also still looked a threat throughout that game as well, Craig. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on was just some of the substitutions that came on during that time. Paul Ensio came on, and so did Zach Lovelace. Zach Lovelace has come on a few times now, but during the week away to Manchester United at Old Trafford, it was Bailey Rice and Finlay Curtis that came on. Were you surprised not to see Rice and Curtis today as part of the subs?
A little bit. I thought they might, they might be the first two to feature out the young boys, but it's encouraging that these guys are, getting a chance now. As I said, I thought during the week, Rice done very, very well, and I hope he sees more game time. Same with Finlay Curtis. I thought, he done okay at Old Trafford, considering it's, a big game to throw him into. But again, those two, to see them come in, I just hope these guys are given more a chance. I know that we're being forced a little bit, but the thing that we're criticising Clement about before was he was just going to Dowell, or he would have went to Lawrence before, and now he's actually giving these young boys a chance. And I think that's what will bring us to be more patient with this team when we see these young players getting a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have to agree. I don't understand really why we weren't doing that earlier on in the season. I guess it feels like now, even Clement's accepted that the league title is gone, so now he's a bit more free in what he's doing in his decision making. Whereas maybe he was a bit desperate in the early stage of the season and trying to rely on experienced guys, or who he viewed as experienced guys. And actually, that's probably been part of our issue in terms of how we've dropped points. So, but it definitely seems there's been a change in mentality over the last couple of weeks from Clement.
100%. And I think I said during the week, I think we all saw Rice come on at half time and see if Dowell would come on and we'd got beat by a few goals, we would have all been pretty angry because you're seeing the same thing over and over again. See, when Rice came on, I thought, do you know what? It's quite a brave call. He doesn't really know how he's got to respond to being at Old Trafford, but there's so much more in upturn. Even if Rice had come on and had a bad game, at least he would have learned from it, and you could have got an upturn. There's a guy getting minutes at Old Trafford. He'll learn from this in the long run. So I think we've been very critical of Clement. I think it's quite crazy that it's the Man United game that he starts throwing them in. But I agree with you. A lot more league games. We need to see these guys getting games now. I think back to a good few years ago when Alec McLeish was the manager and we had a couple of bad seasons. Once we were miles out of the league, he started throwing, like an Alan Hutton in or a Bob Malcolm or Chris Burke. And, it actually benefited us long term from doing this. So we've got to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think this is what this next 4 or 5 months is all about in terms of just getting these guys as much game time as possible. Blue Bells Are Blue says that Finlay Curtis' contract's up at the end of the season. Same with Lovelace. Can't see either sticking around getting as little game time as they are. But maybe actually these being taken in as part of the first team now going forward, being given more game time, maybe just gives them that little bit of hope and that little bit of push to be like, yes, if I stay here, then I will get more. And it'll be interesting how that kind of plays out, because you don't want to lose. Obviously, the way that the B team set up is gone. A lot of players that need experience are going out on loan, but some of them are coming up to the first team because those are the best ones out the lot, and you don't want to start losing them, and then be back to square one when it comes to younger guys. Yeah,
I think it's always going to be a hard balance, and we're always going to get some of these ones wrong. You look at like Lowry, Devine, King. I don't know what their contracts in, but I assume we threw, not massive money at them, but I'm sure we threw, good contracts at them, and then they've not really pushed on. Managers haven't really fancied them, and you've left with them on the books. There's been other young ones like that you've not been able to keep hold of, and they've went off. I don't know anything about Lovelace really, apart from the glimpses that we've seen, or Finlay Curtis, but I think you'll see more of them towards the end of the season. If they put on a few performances, they might get offered a new contract and they might decide to stick around. It's a difficult balance that ultimately every club is going to make mistakes with some young players. Is going to let ones go that were, really good, and has got to keep others on that, are never going to amount to it. So it's a hard balance, but I think all we can do is give them more game time, see if they merit a new contract, and see if we can get them, tied up on if they're worthy of it. In terms of those two, I don't really know, to be honest. I've not seen enough.
Yeah, we spoke about needing that third goal, and it was actually Zach Lovelace who played a key part in that. It was a lovely move from start to finish for the third goal, but it was Zach Lovelace who assisted Cyril Dessers for for another goal this week from Dessers, but it was a tremendous finish, and it kind of shows. I think in these games, whenever we see Dessers play alongside Igaman or another striker, we see more of what Dessers can do. I don't know if it's because the other striker kind of masks a wee bit the negatives of Dessers when Dessers is by himself and trying to hold the ball up and all that sort of stuff. But that we saw on Thursday night how good an instinctive finish that was, and it felt exactly the same again today. Two great goals over the course of this week for Cyril Dessers, and you can't help but be delighted for him when he does that.
Yeah, 100%. His last 3 goals have been cracking finishes. I know it's been later on in the game and it's maybe opened up, but that one during the week, unbelievable finish, and it's so frustrating watching Dessers because he's got it in his locker. He's just not consistent enough on that side. But no, I think he's, especially last few weeks, I think his attitude, over the course of his Rangers career, but that last few weeks, he's been there's loads of talk about him leaving. He's been on the bench, out of favour. He's come on every time with the right attitude and went on and scored. I know he started today, but in general, he's been on the bench. His attitude's been spot on. He's not looked as if he's got his ego got in the way. He's just worked hard. So I think all credit to him. It was great to see him getting another goal today.
As you said, there's been plenty of talk about Cyril Dessers and potentially leaving. He was going to earlier this week with Monza, I believe, who are currently bottom of Serie A, but albeit they're still a Serie A club. Where do you stand on the keep Dessers, let Dessers go argument? I think when you see stuff like we've seen this week, you're like, there's definitely a player in there, but I think all too often he reverts back to type, and because he's nowhere near as consistent as we need a Rangers number 9 to be.
Yeah, I think we need to, while his stock's pretty high, while he's playing well, we need to look to move him on. He's a big earner. He's not, let's be honest, he's not in your starting team. You go with Gamani, you go with Danilo just off him. He's not your first choice number 9. He'll be on big money. I'd imagine we can get decent money for him just now, given his form and given his sort of pedigree and given, as I said, his moments and his goal return over the time. But no, I think he won't. It doesn't really do for your number 9. You need somebody more reliable that we're going to build a team. We've had these wee spells before where he's looked brilliant, but they're matched with spells when he looks horrendous, to be honest with you. So I think it's probably best for all parties that he moves on during this window. But that being said, I don't want to see him chased out the door for pennies. We should be commanding a decent figure for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what kind of is that? It's a really difficult one to judge because we obviously bought him for, I think it was around 4 million. He has weeks like he's had today, this week, where he scores away to Man United. He scores a game clinching goal like that today. He was the highest scorer in the Scottish Premiership over the last calendar year. He's got, if you can boil it down to stats and a highlight reel, you can really see a player that's really important and really can bury chances. But when you see him over the piece, you get really frustrated. How, even as a club, how do we value a player like that in the transfer market, do you think?
It's hard, to be honest with you. I'd be looking to try and get at least our money back, given his recent form. As I said, during the week, the eyes would have been on him against Man United, and to have a finish like that. I think the form he's on, I think we should be trying to get our money back from what we paid. But again, I know that can be difficult because he's on big wages. If teams are not willing to offer those wages, it can be difficult. But I think we'd be looking for a bit of that because we ultimately need to find another striker as well, to be that sort of third choice, if you will, for there. We need to find somebody else before the sort of window shuts as well. So I wouldn't be chasing him out the door. But if an offer around the 4 million mark came in, that would do it for me.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that one, albeit we do need to get this player trading model going, but I'm not sure Dessers is the one that's going to kickstart that. Another player that's cost around the £4 million mark was Nadim Barami. He's come under a lot of criticism recently. I think he's had a couple of good games, but his bad games or his non-existent performances definitely outweigh the good that I've seen so far. What's your opinion been of him at the moment, and what can we do going forward to try and get the most out of him?
I think we definitely need to see a lot more of him for $4 million. We wanted him to be, an instant impact, and yeah, he has a couple of performances, a couple of good moments, but over the piece, he's not done enough. I think we probably need to find his right position. I think we've always been told he's a number 10. I think he struggled against this. He struggled in the Scottish League to make an impact in there. When he was playing at left, he had moments on there. So I think, to be honest with you, I'm not willing to give up on him yet. I think, especially in Old Firm games, I think he's done pretty well in the Old Firm games in terms of the job that we've asked him to do in there. But we just need to see more from him. We need to see more numbers from him. I think sometimes the likes, I think back to the Aberdeen game, I thought he actually played well, but it wasn't coming off for him. I think it's just going to be a bit of time and see if he can, adjust and start to give you numbers on there. But yeah, we certainly need more from him.
Yeah, I think positionally, see when he's got a set system and he needs to be a certain place defensively and he needs to be part of that, like you see in Celtic game, like you see in European games, I think he does better. I think that's better suited to his kind of game, whether that's the number 10 or out wide left. I know there was a lot of people saying we're playing him out of position when we play him wide left, but actually I think he's played better for us wide left than he has in the number 10. I think it's just a case of trying to figure out what his best position is. There's been a lot of discussion about the system as well and how that works for us or works against us. But jury's out for me on Nadim Barami at the moment. I'm not convinced, and I think I would be if there's another player that can play that position, I would be willing to give them a chance and see Barami drop to the bench.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree with that. And as I said, when it can happen, a new signing can take time to adjust. So it wouldn't be in my starting team right now, to be honest with you, if you had other options. We are down at the bare bones, but yeah, maybe that would do him a bit of good, sitting out more games, having to fight his way in. But yeah, you're right, we do need to see more out of him.
Yeah, 100%. Another player that I think we are seeing a lot out of now, but there was doubts about at the start of the season was Hamza Igaman. He's become a shining light over the last month or two, and I thought he had another good game today. There was a rumour going around. I'm not sure on the strength of the rumour, if I'm honest, but there's a rumour going around that Spurs are having a look at him and have been working on trying to make a deal work. Obviously, Ange Postecoglou's there, but they lost to Leicester today, so he must be on a pretty sugary peg when it comes to his own job. But in terms of Igaman and how long you would like to see him stay here, how long you feel we can keep him here for, be interested to know that, and as well as starting looking at fees. I was trying to work out in my head what would I deem acceptable. I think £10 million is too low, but as you start looking at £15 million plus a hefty sell-on fee, I don't see the club turning something like that down.
Yeah, I think when it gets to the kind of 15 million mark just now, if you were offered that with a sell-on, I tend to think the club wouldn't turn that down. Now, I think personally, I think he'll stay till the summer. I think then we'll probably move him on there. But if the right offer comes in just now, if the Tottenham interest is real, and if it has got substance behind it, then you never know. But I personally see him going in the summer. Now, for me, I think most Rangers fans I speak to don't. It's not that they don't want him to go. I think all of us understand it. We'd be more frustrated if he ran down his contract and went for nothing.
Yeah.
We need to start seeing these guys go. So. And I think in terms of, it's great to say, we want 20 million, we want 30 million for players, but we're not really in that strength of position. Clubs know that we need to kick the start the model by getting transfers in. So I don't think that's realistic just now. I think probably the 15 mark is what you'd accept. I don't see us getting much higher for it right now. As I said, that maybe changes in the summer.
Yeah, I don't either. Ideally, I'd like to keep him for another season after this one, and then let him go. Whether we get that or not, I'm not entirely sure. If he continues on this sort of trajectory of improvement that he's been on, if he continues to put in the performances that he's been putting in, especially against the likes of Spurs, against the likes of Man United, against that level of teams, that's where he's going to get noticed. And further we go in the European competition, it's going to be more of the same. I do think we need to try and find the sweet spot. We've just in the past been keeping hold of players for as long as we can, and then getting past that sweet spot of selling them. So we do need to find that, but hopefully that's 12 to 18 months down the line with Hamza Igaman. A few other transfer rumours that are going about. We are heading into the final week of the transfer window. Patrick Stewart obviously said we've got one, maybe two at a push coming in this transfer window. The fact that Rafa Fernandez is already in the door makes you think there's probably not any more incomings unless we maybe get a Lyle Cameron on a pre-contract or something like that, or get him in January. But outgoings, Craig, I think will be the most important thing this week. News tonight that Kieran Dowell is in talks with Birmingham. Birmingham seem to be taking all of the people who aren't working at Rangers, which is very thankful to them for that one. But it seems to be a loan with an option to buy. Matondo, obviously there was the rumours around Coventry wanting him and being interested with Coventry, and that fell through due to issues over bonus payments. I'm sure Rangers would have done anything to get him off the wage bill for the next 6 months and out. There was the wild rumour about Ridvan for about 12 hours last night on social media when he posted a picture of a random cafe in Istanbul. Dessers we obviously spoke about as well, about Monza and the potential there. How important are the outgoings this week? And if we have to go with a bit of a threadbare squad, but we get the right people off the wage bill, do you think that's seen as a win?
Yeah. I think the club might try and bring in a couple if we get those guys that we spoke about off the wage bill. I think it's more important. You're right. It's more important getting them off so we've got a chance to really rebuild. I think guys like Matondo on big money, Dowell will be on decent money on their Dessers. You need to get these guys off the wage bill so that we can, sort of rebuild and clear the decks a little bit. There is still too many. For Dessers, I don't mean not contributing, but like Matondo, Dowell, guys on decent wages are not contributing. So it is quite important that we do get a few off. We've obviously got to balance it. We've got half a season still to play. We do need, so if 2 or 3 go, I would say, 1, maybe 2 might come in from there. But I would hope we can at least get 2 off the wage bill this week.
Yeah, I think fingers crossed. I think when we'll have a kind of rough understanding of how much these guys are potentially on week to week at Rangers, and reducing that wage bill and creating the space for more people actually coming in and more promising younger players coming in is exactly what we want. In terms of those incomings, Lyle Cameron's one that's been mentioned quite a bit. He was mentioned quite a bit in the comments as well earlier on. What do you make of him as a signing? I've seen some people saying he's potentially too lightweight for someone that we need in that position, but he's a promising young player and he's always done well against us whenever he's come up against us. So what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the type of signings we should be making. Scottish players, I mean, there's too many in the past who've missed the boat on. So ultimately you'll get ones that it's relatively low risk. Adds to our homegrown quota for Europe. And he's got the potential to do pretty well in there. So I want to see us signing players like that and taking a bit of a chance on players like that. I don't see him joining this window, mainly because I think Dundee would be due a development fee in the summer. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if it's anything close to what Barton's on, they'd probably want a few $100,000 extra to get him just now, which I don't see the logic in us paying the amount that they would. You'd end up needing to be closer to $1 million, which we're never going to pay just now.
Absolutely, and he's probably going to start every game for Dundee as well between now and the end of the season if he's fit. So at least he's playing football. Whereas there's no guarantee that he would do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, and I think we've got some decent options in the midfield just now. So that's not one I'd be rushing to get done before the window closes. I think that one can wait to the summer. But I think it's a good signing. There's been other Scottish players we've missed out in the past. I think we've probably missed the boat on Lennon Miller because we're getting a bidding war where clubs could definitely outbid us. There's other players that have went abroad to Italy that we've missed out on. There's Max Johnson, who I thought was a really good right back at Motherwell, who I thought we might sign, and he's went away and he's doing well. I think it's Sturm Graz just now. So I like to see us getting these Scottish players, we need more of it. So we'll take a chance on them, and hopefully, they come in and contribute to the squad and develop.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just approaching the hour mark, so I think we'll round off the podcast there. But very interesting last week of the transfer window for Rangers, and to then take stock in a week's time to see where we are and who we've still got in the squad and what that means as we go forward for the rest of the season. But Craig, thanks very much for joining us. Thank you very much everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the video, please do drop a like. It helps us massively. Please do also subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. Make sure you don't miss out on any of the content that we've got coming up over the next week and the weeks that follow. But thank you very much everyone for listening. Until next time.